Speakers and Leaders Hour. I'm Dave Wilkins, your producer and host, and we're here in the library tonight to talk about two of our very favorite organizations, the Toastmaster organization and, of course, the parliamentary world, which is Robert's Rules of Order, the National Association of Parliamentarians. And we, as a group, come together once a month, to talk about these two separate organizations, because most of the people here belong to either one or both of them. And what a lovely group of people I have assembled this evening. Tonight we're going to focus on the leadership of Division B. And indeed, everybody here has been a part of the leadership of Division B. Our leader right now, the highest ranking person in Division B, is our own Adrienne Maurer. And Adrienne Maurer is serving as the Division Director. And this is your second term as Division Director? Yes.
Just starting.
Just starting. Okay. Well, welcome to the program tonight, and I'm sure we're going to hear more from you later on and ask you about how you're doing, too, in the division. Okay. And sitting next to Adrienne is a member of the Anthony Wayne Toastmasters, the Red Cross Toastmasters, the Bob Lyman Toastmasters, and the Parliamentary Club. And that would be our own Mr. Tom Haller. Tom, thank you so much for being here this evening, and it's always a joy to have you. And of course, you've served in the past now as an area governor.
I have.
Three
times.
Three
Once
times.
for your lovely wife, and twice for Patricia Kanabe.
Ah, okay. Then on the other side of the table, there's a lady sitting all by herself right now, and that is my wife, Berniece Wilkins. And I believe that she has served as 4 times as area governor and 5 as division.
5 times area governor and 6 times division.
Oh.
It's hard to keep track anymore.
I think you hold the division record for sequential terms or terms as division governor.
They make me do it over till I do it right.
Oh, is that it? Oh, okay.
That's
okay.
right.
And a long, long, long time ago, I was also your division governor. That was back in 88 and 89. I only had to do it once, because I got it right the first time. And also, several of these people are members of the parliamentary unit here in Fort Wayne, the Bob Lyman unit of the National Association of Parliamentarians, where Tom serves as president, and the education vice president, and Berniece serves as the secretary. And later in the program, if we have time, we will be talking about parliamentary procedure. But we want to begin by talking about Toastmasters and our Toastmaster experience. And now, each of our speeches that we give here at Toastmasters is individual to ourselves. We choose our own topics, we choose what we want to say, we choose how we want to put it together, and we get the feedback through evaluation of what we've done. Now tonight we have 3 speeches by 3 of our members here tonight, and each one is different unto its own self. And so, without further ado, I'd like to introduce our very first presenter. He is speaking out of the basic manual, the CC manual, and it's project number 4, and that is How to Say It. Tom is an avid history buff, and he has regaled us with many, many stories about World War I, World War II, and tonight he is going to share with us a story about the Great Battle, and he will tell us about the anniversary that is coming up for that. Please welcome double DTM, Mr. Tom Haller.
Thank you, Mr. Wilkins, fellow Toastmasters, and everyone out there in TV land. It is indeed an upcoming anniversary. We are now celebrating, wouldn't be the correct word, but observing the centennial of World War I. It was fought from 1914 to 1918. Right in the middle of it, in 1916, they decided, the British did, they needed to relieve the French. The French were hard-pressed at Verdun, so they would open up another front on the Somme River. They were deeply entrenched there on both sides. The British came up with a brilliant plan. We'll put brilliant in quotation marks. They started off the last week of June, 1916. They fired over 1.5 million rounds of ammunition at the Germans. Absolutely unprecedented. No one had ever done anything like that before. The concept was that it would destroy the trenches, the barbed wire, and any Germans foolish enough to stick around for it. It seemed, on paper, to be a really good plan. But absolutely anything that could possibly go wrong went wrong. In the first place, they had the wrong kind of artillery, they had the wrong kind of shells, and about a third of the shells didn't explode at all. So after they got done with this week of shelling the enemy, they then not so much charged, but walked across no man's land. Every soldier carrying at least 70-some pounds of supplies, most of them carrying a good deal more. The Germans had been virtually unaffected by the bombardment. They knew when the attack was coming because it ceased, that is, a bombardment. So they got back out, manned their machine guns, and mowed the British down. Costliest day in British history, at least military history. They lost 57,500 men. They had that many casualties, most of them in the first 2 hours. Now, these were people from Britain, Scotland, Ireland, also from Canada, India, and Newfoundland. Newfoundland was a separate colony at that period of time. So they went out there to tremendous losses. The French also were a part of this, although a smaller part. They had been fighting the Germans longer now, and they had learned a few tricks. This is a recurring theme. The one group didn't share very well with the others to tell them how to, conduct their business. So when the French went forward, they carried all their objectives. They had far fewer troops involved, and they lost very few. But the English really took it on the chin. In addition to walking slowly across the open ground, which is being covered by machine guns and artillery, their trenches, unlike the German trenches were very well made with concrete, wooden timbers, so forth. The cannons they used on them had virtually no effect. The English trenches were more like a rabbit warren. They went everywhere. They were several layers deep. Some of the soldiers never found their way out of them, never found their way from the back to the front. And by the time some of them got to the exits where they would go out, they found they were blocked by incoming wounded and retreating. Even the British helmets were virtually worthless, whereas the German helmets were excellent. So it just was a total fiasco. It seems a little odd, with perfect 20/20 hindsight, that nobody thought to call it off. At some point in the ongoing melee, you would have thought somebody would have noticed this really wasn't working at all. But they just kept going. And indeed, they just kept going until the middle of November. The total cost of the battle is somewhat hard to figure. The German statistics are very poor, but somewhere between 1 million and 1.5 million people lost their lives altogether. The British did make some headway. They took a few miles of ground. As I say, they got better and better. I don't know about the helmets, but they did have artillery that worked. They did have ammunition that exploded and ammunition that was appropriate. And they learned how to attack much better. So in the end, all sides lost somewhat equally. The Germans probably lost 500,000 or so men. The British a little less than that, and the French a couple 100,000, although they were not near as invested in that as what the English were. At a time when it was not considered patriotic, not considered appropriate to criticize the government in any way, Winston Churchill suggested that perhaps a mile gained at the rate of 88,000 casualties was excessive. On the other hand, his plans in Turkey weren't going any better, and he didn't have anything better to offer. Initially, for many, many years, the English, particularly their commander, General Haig, was roundly criticized for this, for carrying it on so long. Certainly there would seem like there could have been improvements made, but considering the carnage of the whole war, perhaps it wasn't that incredibly unusual. There were Americans killed in this battle, even though we were not in the war yet. There were Americans that served with the British forces and also with the French Foreign Legion. Incidentally, an American shot down a German airplane in a dogfight. So it's just Really hard to know, even from the perspective of a century later, whether they could have done that much better. Certainly there was some room for improvement. Might have tried it on a smaller scale. At this point in time, all the British soldiers were volunteers. That was considered a pretty big deal over there. This battle changed that. It might be harder to get people after this, I can see. The phrase "a lost generation" came into being. A lot of the troops on the British side were what they called PAL, P-A-L, battalions. Someone came up with the bright idea that if you could serve with your best buddies, your friends, why, there would be more people would volunteer. So you would have whole towns in a battalion, you would have whole rugby leagues in a battalion, that kind of thing. Of course, as happened several times, if you send 700 people in the morning in a battalion and 65 survive, that's very, very hard on a community. Perhaps one of the hardest hit communities was Newfoundland. As I mentioned, it was a separate colony. It was not written anywhere. It would become part of Canada. It might well have become an independent country, except for the lost generation. I think there were 35 or 50 of those people out of their 700 that reported for duty the next morning. And of course, these people didn't go home then. There were still 2 years of combat ahead of them. So people, there are two things we can do with history. We can either learn from it or repeat it. I really hope we can learn from it. Mr. Wilkins.
Thank you very much, Tom. I'm sure you didn't learn all of this in school. How do you learn all these facts about the history and all the information that you keep at your fingertips without benefit of notes? It's just absolutely amazing.
Well, the internet is a great way to do it nowadays.
Oh, okay.
And you assume that this is all accurate. You know, you might want to consider that I don't remember it correctly.
Well, yeah, okay.
No, the internet is a great source.
Yeah. We have some videos of history back at that time. We have a whole series of DVDs called Fall of Eagles. There were 3 European families that were related by blood that actually fought. And it was the Romanovs, the Hohenhausens, and the Habsburgs. And they were all, each one was their own nation unto themselves. And they were all related by blood to Queen Victoria of Great Britain. And a very interesting series of stories.
Yeah, she had 10 children and she married them off politically to try to keep the peace.
Yeah.
Didn't work. However, the inbreeding did become a problem.
Yes, it did, especially in Russia, where the one son was born with hemophilia, and that was so sad. And that was the Romanov family. Well, so that was a very interesting story of history, and that's what you can do with the Toastmasters. Pick your own topic, your own subject. Now, the next lady I'm going to introduce will have an entirely different story, a different take. She's been a member for 17 years of the Wall Street Speakeasies. She's also a member of the Advanced Speakers and Leaders Club and current Division B Director. And she's responsible for all the clubs in Northeast Indiana, and she'll be repeating this role again in the year 2016-17. That'll start on July 1. In her year as Division Director, Adrienne learned some lessons about being a leader in her own way. And her speech is entitled today, Doing It My Way. Please help me welcome Adrienne Maurer. Clap, 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 clap.
Thank you, Dave. Fellow Toastmasters, doing it my way. Don't be too concerned. I'm not going to break into song. That would not be good. If you want to learn to be an effective leader, there are lots of ways to accomplish that. You can ask someone who's done it before, someone who's had that same position that you have. Get tips and tricks from them. All of you sitting around the table have been where I am now. You can check out leadership in your local bookstore. There are reams of books at the library and at the bookstores on leadership techniques. There are many different authors giving you different ideas about how to be an effective leader. You can take a continuing education class at your local community college. You can join Toastmasters. Toastmasters is a wonderful opportunity to learn leadership skills. And of course, as Tom mentioned, the internet. You can Google it. If you go out to the internet and look for tips and tricks on how to be an effective leader, you can find all kinds of information free at your fingertips. Countless resources to provide you with what you need and advice on how to be a great leader. And I have used them all. I've consulted with my friends. I've joined Toastmasters. I've read books, and I've Googled. When I decided to take on the role of division director, I already knew what the job entailed. I knew what the responsibilities were. As I said before, those around the table have done what I've done before. There are many others in the Toastmasters community who have done the role that I was going to take on. I watched them. I could see what things they did, and I borrowed from their experiences. The district also provides you with a great deal of training and mentoring. They find people who help you with whatever questions you might have. It's a nice, solid foundation as you work your way up through the Toastmasters ranks. When you decide to take on these high-level leadership roles, you've got a great foundation for what you need to be a good leader. The year in front of me, I thought would be easy because I have this nice, solid foundation. But I was still a little uncomfortable taking on the role. I wasn't quite sure how I was going to make the role something that was specific to myself. How would I take ownership of that role and make it my own? No one would be able to tell me, how do I do that for myself? How do I take on that leadership role and make it something that I can be proud of? This was something I would have to figure out on my own. That's when it hit me. In my professional life, I'm an analyst. I was going to take on the role of division director just like I would a work project. When I'm in my professional life, when I take on a work project, since I'm an analyst, I study. There are 3 things that I do in my work, in my professional life, that I decided to apply to being division director. I study work habits, I prepare and conduct trainings, and I help others to be more effective in their everyday lives. I decided to take those 3 things and apply those as being a division director. Studying work habits. Those who report to me, or that I'm responsible for, are the area directors. They're the ones that have direct contact with the individual clubs. They have to visit the clubs. They have to provide information to the clubs. They have to interact with the officers. They have to try and make sure that the clubs are being successful on their own. There are a lot of things that each area director has to do interacting with their own clubs. It would be great if there was a common piece of information, a common list of what things you need to do when you're interacting with your clubs. So I built a year at a glance. I built a calendar. In July, these are the topics that you need to cover when you're talking with your clubs. In August, these are the topics you cover. When you get to September, you have to start talking about collecting club dues. On and on. Every month, there's something different that you need to be focusing on as an area director to pass along to your clubs. So I put those together. I tried to figure out how I could make the job of area director better. Also, conducting training is a big part of my professional life and as division director, training and mentoring. We conduct officers' trainings twice a year, and it's my responsibility to make sure that those get completed. It's something I do in my work, and it's something that I thoroughly enjoy as being division director. The third part of my role is to make sure that others are effective. We put together guidelines for how to conduct contests. These are things that can be used at the club level and also at the area and the division level. To the extent that when I take on division director this year, all of those guidelines are already completed. So when we get ready to do our contests, it's not starting from scratch. We already have everything put together that we need to be able to do a contest. So we've become much more effective because we don't have to repeat the same thing over and over. So I learned to tap into my own strengths. Everyone has a strength or a talent or a skill. The key is finding what that strength is and using it to your advantage. Doing it my way. Frank Sinatra had the right idea. If you want to do something right, figure out how to do it your way. Mr. Toastmaster.
Alrighty, thank you very much, Adrienne. What a great presentation. And I think, as I've been in Toastmasters so many years, I've seen the different ways that people have accomplished the division leadership, whether it's director or the governor or whatever it is, how they have done it. Yours is very analytical and very well structured. And I'm reminded of the lady that preceded you, Crystal. I believe that she also had a very fine way of putting it together. She ruled with a velvet glove. She was so quiet and so sweet, but by golly, she got things done just the way she should. So, wonderful presentations. Well, now we've heard two different presentations from the basic manual, and each one is showing your ability to choose any topic and talk about it what you want. Well, I'm going to talk about, for the next 5 or 7 minutes, why Toastmasters. And having been around now 31 years, I have some perspective and observations that I think that are very important. When you consider that you could go out and take a class in public speaking, you pay your fee, you get your book, you go sit in the class, you don't know anybody. At the end of the day, the teacher gives you an assignment, you go home. You're not really interacting with a whole room full of people. Also, you get a grade, you don't get any advice. And you pay a large fee, or a fee certainly for this class. Toastmasters is not a class. It's a club. Just think of that. It's a club of people who've all come together for one common reason, to improve themselves in public speaking. And that's what they're going to do, is improve themselves. Each one comes with their own ideas, their own values, their own goals, their own reasons for being there. And it's the dynamics of all these people coming together at one time with the same common goal. And one of our late Toastmasters, a lady named Vivian Gordon, she declared that a year in Toastmasters was equal to a year in college, because in a year's time you're going to hear between 100 and 150 speeches, each one from a person who's passionate about what they're saying, and it's going to be information that you would never have received had you not been part of that organization. Also, we have something called the Word of the Day or Word of the Week, and that's where we improve our vocabulary. That vocabulary gets better simply because we hear new words, and then we're supposed to try to use that word somewhere during the evening. I have my own personal thing about the word of the evening. I try to slip it in so smoothly that I don't get recognized for it. And if I'm not recognized for it, then I have accomplished my goal. The other thing I try to do, and it's probably not quite so nice, is to make a torturously terrible pun about it and act as though it was perfectly normal. And aside from those two things, I really like the word of the day, because you do indeed grow. And our stock in trade is words, and those are the things that we use every single day. We need to use them correctly and well. And Toastmasters will teach us how to do that. And how does that work in a class or in a club? How do you learn in a club? You get feedback. You don't get pounded down like you did this wrong, or that wasn't good, or you shouldn't have done it that way. You get positive reinforcement through what we call evaluation. And it's the evaluations that you get each week after you speak. And you take the advice of your evaluator, and the next time you'll do a better job and a better job. And a friend of mine, Rich Cooper, who is no longer here in the Fort Wayne area, he always likened the Toastmaster Club to a workshop, to a laboratory, to an experimental station where you could come up here, stand at this lectern, fall flat on your face. Doesn't matter at all, because who's going to know you're just here in your club setting? And it was Dr. Smedley, when he formed Toastmasters, that had the giant idea that, and this time it was young men in 1924 at the YMCA in Santa Ana, California. The young men would come down to the Commons area in the evening, and they'd talk about what they had to do the next day. Perhaps one of them had a test he had to take, and he was worried about that. Perhaps another one was going to try and sell a product to a new customer. Or whatever, these young men had jobs they had to do the next day. It was Dr. Smedley's idea that if they got together, practiced whatever it was in front of whoever it was there, and did it here in this non-threatening setting, and the next day when you go out, you would give it to the world and really be good at it. And that was Dr. Smedley's germ of an idea, and it has been refined and pounded and put together and made into a project, into an organization that today is worldwide and has helped countless thousands of people. And if you are out there and if you would like to become a public speaker, or if you need leadership skills, I urge you to go to www.toastmasters.org, type in find a club, and there will be a club somewhere near where you can attend it. True enough, there are some clubs that are within industry that are closed clubs, but the majority of the clubs that we deal with are called community clubs, and any person over the age of 18 who would like to be a member of Toastmasters can come and join. And that's what Toastmasters is really all about. So why Toastmasters? Well, why not Toastmasters? It's done a lot for me. It's taken me places I never, ever thought I would go. If someone had told me back in 1985, you'll be hosting your own TV show. If they would have told me that at one time or other I would have been invited to go to Russia to help teach parliamentary procedure, I would have never known the chance to go to Nashville, Tennessee and speak at a humorous speech contest. Those things would have been foreign to me and absolutely beyond my radar. But because of Toastmasters and because of what you can do here in the club, you have all these positions put before you that you can do. And every part of the Toastmaster meeting is a learning experience. We don't all always get up and give speeches. Everything in the club is part of formal presenting. For example, like tonight, if you're the Toastmaster, you would be the master of ceremonies. You would get practice being able to bring people up and bring other people up and lead the applause. And you might have to do that at your work sometime. The impromptu session, which we're going to get to in just a little bit, is where you have a chance to speak off the cuff on a subject you don't know anything about. But just having the practice doing it is what makes it wonderful and good for you. So everything about the Toastmaster program is a learning experience. You learn at your own rate. The fees are very reasonable. The training is ongoing because we learn from our own members. Why Toastmasters? Because it really works. I encourage you to find a Toastmaster meeting. And I would say, Mr. Toastmaster, and then I would say, that's the end of my speech. Clap, clap, clap. And now we are going to go on to what we call the topic session. And that we have in each meeting. Normally we will call upon the people who aren't giving speeches, but since we're such a small group, and we want to give you a taste of what the whole Toastmaster program is like, we're going to have a topic session. Now each of the presenters will need to come to the lectern here to give their presentations. And our topic master tonight is the lady who served as division governor 6 times, a long time ago. Please welcome my wife, Berniece Wilkins.
Clap, clap, clap. Thank you, Dave. I've enjoyed all the speeches. They are just really great. But you know, the topic session, I think, is the one thing in the Toastmaster program that probably is the most powerful tool. Because how many times in the day do you have to speak off the top of your head? Your boss stops you in the hallway. Hey, that meeting is in 5 minutes in the Great Hall. I forgot to tell you. I want to report on your department's progress. What? You've got all the information in your head. It's not that you don't know, but can you organize it quickly and then be able to give it in an effective, orderly manner? That's what the topic session is. Or I'm standing in line at Kroger's, and the line is moving very slowly, so I strike up a conversation with the lady in front of me. How do I know what to talk about? She's a stranger. The topic session. Nearly every week, if I'm not a speaker, I'm in the topic session. Now, the questions today, they do not have a yes or no answer. It's not a test of your knowledge. It's just a subject that I hope you'll be able to develop into a short 1-minute speech. And I have to tell you, admit, this is kind of a nonsensical topic session. So beware. It shouldn't be too difficult. My first question, I heard that you were abducted by aliens. I don't mean illegal aliens. I mean, aliens from outer space. Can you tell me about your experience, Adrienne? You have to watch the chords.
Thank you, Madam Topics Master, fellow Toastmasters, and guests. Yes, it is true. I have just returned from the planet Krypton. I was abducted by aliens about 2 weeks ago. It was one of the most eye-opening experiences of my entire life. I was able to go up in their vehicle, in their craft, and see that technology has reached the pinnacle. They didn't have to speak. All they had to do was look at you, and they knew exactly what you were thinking. I learned so much from my experience when I was taken up in their vehicle. So much so that they said my head was too full of information, and it was so full that they couldn't put any more in there, and I had to go back. Madam Topics Master.
You expect us to believe that, Adrienne. Good job, good job. My next question. I understand that in your house you have a large aquarium and you talk to your fish and they actually come up to the glass and talk to you. What do you think your fish are thinking about as they swim around? Dave Wilkins.
Thank you, Madam Topic Master. That was a really great question. And I do indeed have an aquarium, and I do have rather large angelfish. And I have to admit that I train them over the years. And by that I mean when I'm ready to feed them, I take the little container and I tap on the glass. And that brings them to the top, and they're up there going, I'm practically dropping food in their mouth. I feed them twice a day. When I get up in the morning, I walk into the living room and I drop the food in and I say, good morning, fish, you know. Now, they don't, of course, really answer me, but it's also a time of day when I can check and make sure that everybody that's in there is alive. There's 2 catfish, 2 angelfish, there's 7 black tetras and 3 zebrafish. And they're all doing very well, so they're all quite healthy. And but they don't talk to me, Madam Topic Master.
Thank you, Dave. I could swear one of them was yelling, help, help, because I noticed it was swimming belly up. Well, guess who gets the last question? Tom. I hate to admit it, but we're members of the golden age, the golden years. Are there things that you wish you could still do that you did when you were a kid? Tell us about it. Tom Haller.
Madam Table Topic Master, fellow Toastmasters, everyone in TV land, let me first of all say I'm rather disappointed I didn't get the guppy question. Oddly enough, the Red Cross and their table topics did give me almost exact same questions, so I would have been primed and ready for it. So I would have somewhat defeated the purpose of having a new and exciting thing. I have completely forgotten the original question, so I might as well continue on with Guppy. Oh, what I could do when I was a kid. Yes, to make a mess and have my mother clean it up. Since she has departed, and my wife has on several occasions, with a very firm note in her voice, explained that she is not my mother, there seems to be no one to clean up my messes except me. I've tried to get the cats to do it. Well, a cat clean up a mess, it's lucky to clean up dropped cat food, especially if it knows that it's supposed to. No, there's only me. There's so many things that I would like to do that I could do when I was a kid, including walking into this building without running out of air. But that would be enough of that. You've escaped from me. Come back here.
I tried to escape. Tom, I don't know. It sounds like maybe you haven't grown up yet. Well, thank you for all those wonderful answers. I'm glad I wasn't the one receiving the question. And I will return control to our Toastmaster, Dave.
Okay. Well, there you have it, folks. That is what a basic Toastmaster meeting has. 3 speakers, some topics, and now we're going to go into what we call the evaluation portion of the program. Normally we have another person who would be in charge of that, but as I say, we're a bit short-handed tonight, so with your kind permission, I will continue what I have been doing, which is trying to keep the whole thing going, pretty much. Anyway, our first presenter was Tom. He was speaking from the basic manual, and it was project number 4, that is how to say it. And his goal tonight was to use clear, succinct, short words and very vivid, clear sentences that could not be misinterpreted. You did that excellently well. You did not disappoint us when it came to your word choice. Your topic, as I said earlier, is phenomenal that you can talk about these fabulous battles, and you even know about the battles and what was going on. It was appropriate to our audience, certainly because this was, as I understand, the 100th anniversary of this battle. Yeah. Wow. And you used clear, short, distinct words that were easy to understand, and your pictures that you painted in your mind, telling us about what was happening to the soldiers and what was happening in those foxholes. It was vivid, it was clear, it was concise, very good. You didn't use words that were ambiguous, you didn't use words that had double meanings. We could understand exactly what you were saying when you were saying it. And you used good eye contact. You looked on both sides of the room, you checked out the camera on occasion, and you did a very fine job with that too. You have a way of bringing history to life that is well, it's a real gift you have. One of our other members, Dave Fricke, has a gift of being able to quote the most obscure statements and facts and bring them to part of his speech. But you have this gift and facility for history. What did I like about the speech? Well, I just liked about everything about the speech. And what could you do different? I don't know if it's possible, in our limited space here, if you could have printed perhaps a picture of the soldiers, maybe the British soldiers or the German soldiers, or some scene from that war. That certainly would have locked it in. Perhaps an illustration or something that you might have had. But everything that you said about the war and about that battle you certainly accomplished your purpose using clear, distinct words. Thank you. Great job. Okay. And our next presenter was Adrienne, and Tom, you will be evaluating her.
Mr. Wilkins, and particularly Adrienne. Excellent job. Always enjoy hearing her speak. There are reasons why she has leadership roles in both Toastmasters and in real life. Very good job. I gave her pretty much the highest marks for everything. She did use a few notes, which is not all that bad. I mean, some people use notes their whole lives. TI discourages it, but, big deal. Good use of humor to open the meeting, the speech. Very good. I enjoyed that a lot. Two areas that I thought you might have done just a little bit of improving. Lacking a grammarian. There may even be a difference of opinion about this. You said you borrowed from their experiences. I'm not sure experiences are borrowable from. I think you would learn from their experiences. That would be my assumption. Wouldn't be the first time I was wrong on a grammatical issue. The other one was you repeated one gesture. I don't recall ever seeing you do this before. You repeated this gesture time, it was almost not quite, but almost a constant thing. So a little more variety in gestures, which I know you do all the time. It was very good information for all of us. I always enjoy learning, being taught how to do better, and you accomplished that very nicely with this talk. Just another very well done job. I look forward to your next speech.
Thank you, Tom. Not only are you a great speaker, you're also a wonderful evaluator, and that was a wonderful evaluation. You had some suggestions. You also pointed out things that she did well. And the last speaker was myself, and Adrienne, if you could give that. We need an applause sign or applause meter or something.
goes wild.
Thank you, Dave. I enjoyed your presentation on why Toastmasters. I thought there were some excellent points brought up about what things you can get out of Toastmasters: improved vocabulary, positive reinforcement, feedback, non-threatening setting, off the cuff, learn at your own rate. Those were things that I wrote down that I always felt were good points about why Toastmasters is such a good organization. I loved the Dr. Smedley story about how Toastmasters was started with sitting in the YMCA and all these gentlemen talking about what was going to be going on the next day. I thought that was a nice visual. I could picture all those men sitting around talking about this sales pitch they have to give tomorrow or the test that they have to take. And I thought that was a great example of using a story to give you more information, and it really helps to bring home the point. You're quite comfortable and smooth when you get up to speak, and I always enjoy listening to you. The one thing that I thought for improvement, since there was so much information, I thought maybe a recap of the high points would have helped to bring it all back together. And I did write down, when you were talking about using the word of the day, torturously terrible pun. I love the presentation, and I look forward to your next one.
Alrighty. Thank you very much, Adrienne. And again, that was a good evaluation and good observations. Now, did you evaluate the topics too?
I did.
You did. Okay. Well, do you want to come back up here and give us the topic evaluation, please? Yes.
Thank you. We had 3 presentations for table topics. First was myself, abducted by aliens. And I have to admit, as I'm walking up to the front, when you're doing table topics, if you're trying to come up with something to say, the best thing to do is to repeat the question. So I tried to come up with some way to repeat the fact that, oh yes, I did get abducted by aliens. And I was able to come up with something to fill the time adequately. Next was Dave talking about his aquarium and talking fish. I thought that there were some wonderful gestures. Probably my favorite one was where he was imitating the fish being fed, and he tapped on the glass and he pretended to be feeding the fish. And when the fish were accepting the food, I thought the gestures were wonderful, and it really added to the presentation. Tom talking about what things he would do that he used to do as a youngster, and I loved the idea of making a mess and having someone else clean it up. Tom is very forceful with his vocal variety. And the one thing that I wrote down was when he said, "My wife's firm voice, I am not your mother." And I thought that was a great way to bring home the point of why he likes making a mess but wants someone else to clean it up. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you. If you notice me keep writing things down, we do time everything that we do in the Toastmaster meeting so that we know if we're being succinct and clear when we're talking. I'd like to comment on the topic master. Your questions were certainly off the wall tonight. Very well done, and you asked them with such a nice, pleasant grace, and I liked your little promo for the topic session before you began explaining what we do. Okay, the times for this evening, here they are. Tom requested 8 minutes, or 6 to 8 minutes. You spoke exactly 8 minutes. Adrienne, you requested 5 to 7. You spoke 6:31, right in there. I requested 5 to 7, and my speech was 6:57, so we're all right on schedule. During the topic session, Adrienne, you spoke 59 seconds. I spoke 101, and Tom, you spoke 109. But you had to get in there what your wife said, so During the evaluation portion of the program, Tom's evaluation of myself took 1 minute and 23 seconds. My evaluation of Adrienne took 2 minutes, and Adrienne's evaluation of me took 1 minute and 29 seconds. Overall, I think we've done very well tonight. This is the live show. If you want to call us, you could call in and talk to us. And that number is 422-3902. It's getting a bit late for that. We have a few minutes left, so I think what we will do at this time, if the booth is all ready, we will just do our PSAs, and then we'll say some closing remarks, and we will be done. So if, with your kind permission, let's do the PSAs.
Much. And now for our next speaker, Stanley Lichner.
Speaking in public doesn't have to be a death sentence. At Toastmasters, we can help you overcome your fears.
I'd like to begin tonight with a little joke. This guy, he's a farmer, and he says, "Hey, hello, sorry." But seriously, folks.
Speaking in public is no joke.
Farmer says, doctor says, chicken says...
For help, call Toastmasters, the public speaking support group.
The chicken. All the education in the world won't help you get ahead in life if you can't express your ideas effectively. Every day, competition for advancement gets tougher and tougher. You need an edge. A Toastmasters club can give you that edge. A low-cost learning experience for men and women. Toastmasters gives you the confidence to express your ideas to anyone. Get the Toastmasters edge.
What future do you envision for yourself? What dreams do you have? If you want your dreams to come true, you must have confidence in yourself and your abilities. A Toastmasters Club can help you build that confidence. A low-cost learning experience for men and women. Toastmasters shows you how to express yourself clearly and effectively. Make your dreams a reality. Join a Toastmasters Club.
Okay, we are back, and that is the Toastmaster experience according to the Speakers and Leaders Hour tonight. And this is the part of the program where we would pick up on the parliamentary portion. But since time is running short, I'm going to ask our club president, Mr. Tom Haller, to give us a little bit of the particulars about our club and who can join and where they can come in and meet with us. Tom, please. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Wilkins. As to who can join, it's open to the public. We would love to have any and all of you come. I can hardly imagine that we would turn any of you down. There is a small fee to join, but you could certainly visit us as often as you want without any charge. We meet the third Monday of every month in the Globe Room here at the downtown public library. There's a huge globe in the walkway, and we meet back of that. Now, in June, we will not meet. We're taking June off. We will meet again in July and from then henceforth. So, if you have any questions or issues, if you don't think your association is running things the way they should, if you think maybe you should know how to run your association better, why come and we would be happy to work with you on a one-on-one basis until you're completely comfortable with that. Mr. Wilkins.
Okay. Thank you, Tom. That was a great presentation, and also that shows everybody why you are the one who is the president of our club. You lead us very well, and that's wonderful. Well, in the closing minutes, I'd like to have each of us go around the room and invite people to your various Toastmaster clubs and meeting time and so on. And let us start with Berniece.
Oh, okay. I belong to Club 521, Anthony Wayne Toastmasters. We meet every Thursday evening at 6:30 p.m. and we meet at Ivy Tech. I went blank there for a minute. We meet at Ivy Tech, so please come. Everybody's welcome.
Okay. And Tom, do you have a club you'd like to promote tonight?
Well, I'm always happy to hear other people promoting Anthony Wayne. I belong to other clubs, the Advanced Speakers and Leaders Club, for one. It's a very good club for those who have completed their Competent Communicator Manual and do belong to another club. We don't poach from other clubs. But for some of those longer speeches, for more in-depth analysis and so forth, why, by all means come to that club. Since there's no other representative here, I will give a plug for the Red Cross Club. They meet every Tuesday at 12 noon in the Red Cross building here in Fort Wayne. It's a very fine noontime club. My wife is going to be the incoming president, so I encourage anybody who finds that time to work for them to visit us.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Tom. Great promotion there. And finally, our division director, can you talk to us about your club?
Sure. I belong to the Wall Street Speakeasy Toastmasters Club. We meet the second and fourth Fridays of the month from noon to 1 at First Presbyterian Church. We're a fun group. We have interesting table topics. We have members that have been around for a long time and some that are brand new. It's a nice, diverse group, and we would love for you to come and visit.
All right. Thank you, Adrienne, and thank each and every one of you for being here tonight. You've just done a super-duper job, and I'd like to thank you there at home watching. If you have enjoyed this tonight, kind of let us know. Either come to a Toastmaster Club or perhaps let the library know. I also need to say a couple thank yous. One to the Allen County Public Library, another to Access Fort Wayne, the TV station you're watching right now, and the volunteers and the paid employees that really put us on the air. Tonight we owe a special debt of thanks to Dennis Osborne, who has been putting the microphones in place and also getting us on the air, and Otto Boucher as the technical director and the one who put the set together. We've had a great time tonight. Our July program will be on July 5th, Tuesday, the day after the 4th, and we will be here with the members of the Anthony Wayne Toastmaster Club. I hope you come tune in to see that. And until next month, may all your speeches be great, and until then, God bless, and bye-bye.